Phone
Mike
settings.
Gain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mike Gaines. That's always a good time. What up, Internet Land? We'll see if anybody tunes in tonight. I'm excited. We're coming a little later today. We'll talk a little bit about why we're coming in a little bit later on Friday evening, um, and that's 100% my fault. I'm sure my buddy Phil is frustrated with me, but good things happen today, so that's a good thing. Phil, how you doing, brother? What's going on?
Coming down with the China flu.
Oh no,
We're not
dude.
scared though. I mean, it's 99.9% survivable. So,
Oh, I got super chastised for that earlier today. I was stirring the pot of bullcrap
oh
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah, because I said something about somebody was advocating for forced vaccinations, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that would not be good. I think there would be violence if that were to be the case, and so we don't
There
want
will
that.
be.
We do not want that. We do not want violence. I mean, mostly. But anyway, just don't kick us off Facebook. That's what we're asking for. So anyway, yeah, man. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. You got a fever. You're losing the taste. What are you experiencing right now? We want to hear about it.
Yeah, this water's pretty flavorless.
Your water's pretty flavor. You're not drinking water. I saw you crack that can of Coca Cola. You jerk, taunting your fat friend. Oh, it is water. Okay. It looked like when you snuck it in the room, it looked like Coca Cola, and I was gonna be like, bro, I want a
I
Coca
don't
Cola
drink
so
soda.
bad.
Every once in a while, if I happen to be, I don't know, Arby's or some other place and have no choice, and all they have, I'll get it, and I'm usually feel sick by like a third of the way through it and toss
Oh,
it.
I'm positive that if today I were to crack open a Coke, I would throw it up. There is no
Yeah.
question that that would happen. The only things that I've had problems with post surgery is I drank some of the juice from canned peaches, and it was actually low sugar. I canned those peaches myself, so I knew
Oh,
that.
we were on the phone.
Yeah,
That's
we
right.
were on the phone. I hung up on you to go step out on the porch and throw up those peaches. Listen, internet land, we learned an important lesson. If you want to throw up the best thing to throw up in the whole wide world, canned peaches that you literally just ate. They're not even warm yet. It's a spectacular experience. I mean, I'm not saying that it was delightful. I'm saying the most delightful thing to throw up, canned peaches.
Nice.
Certainly better than like Fireball or something like that.
I don't know if I don't think I've ever done that.
Have you seen that meme? I wish I had it right now. If I had it, I'd pop it up right now on the screen. Have you seen the meme where the lady's smelling the candle and she's like, "Oh, this smells just like Fireball," and her friend is like, "For those of us who aren't alcoholics, Sharon, that's cinnamon."
Back
So
in the day, it was Avalanche.
back in the day, it was Avalanche. That's right. That's exactly right. So, all right, this is the Prepped Pastors podcast, man. How are you prepping
Good.
for the Chinese flu? How are you prepping for that?
Oh goodness, my prep for China flu started back in late December uh, of 2019,
Yeah, mine too.
and when we started to get notified at our business that internationally the hotels were watching this come out of China and
Right.
expected it to devastate the hospitality industry.
Okay.
And shortly after that, there must have been some sort of dentist convention or something because we had about half a dozen dentists contact us because they were liquidating their businesses,
Really?
selling out, moving. Just
Wow.
they were pulling chocks and going to close doors because of what they were watching coming. And that was in January and February.
Yeah.
I was at a chaplain convention in Anchorage in March, like the last couple days of February, rolling into
I remember.
March.
I remember you were there.
And
Yeah.
my wife was doing, I don't remember what she was doing, something business related the exact same time. And it was funny because all the hospital workers that were sitting at the table with me, they all kept getting a little further and further apart. And I was watching them start putting down Zycam and like they were pre-gaming for the sickness.
Pre-gaming for the sickness. Hey,
But anyway, so in all that time, we bought Emergen-C, which is just a huge vitamin drop, right?
yeah,
It's a big load of vitamins.
sure.
We bought all the boxes of that when we saw it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we got about 12 of them, big cases.
Right.
Stocked up on a bunch of water, electrolyte additives, which, you never can have too much of. It's very much a survival tool, is to have a little powder with electrolytes.
Sure.
So, we're big into the hydration. We'll get you through almost any illness.
Yeah.
Fresh socks, Motrin, and a bunch of water.
So one of the things that I've started recently stocking up on based on my doctor's recommendation just from healing up from surgery is a product called Liquid IV. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You can get it on Amazon. It's a great electrolyte. And I'll be honest with you, like the electrolyte packets, most of them taste
a lot of salt.
Awful. Yeah, like they're either way
you
too
gotta get flavored.
Yeah, they're either way too sweet or they're way too salty. And I will say that the Liquid IV, I've had the tangerine and I've had the lemon lime, and both of them are really tolerable. And I mix them a little more diluted than recommended. I can usually I usually put them in about one of those or just a liter of Nalgene bottle. And they are actually really pretty tolerable, honestly. And I feel like they truly helped, because I got pretty dehydrated post surgery. I don't know if I told you that or not, but
I don't remember, but I get really bad for a long surgery like you did too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes days to recover.
Like I had a meeting with my doctor via, Zoom, and she was like, maybe, do you want to just go to the hospital right now? We'll just hook you up with some like IV fluids. And I was like,
that is the best.
It is the best, but I really just didn't want to go to the hospital.
I have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I do.
We're not doing it arbitrarily because I don't have the ability to restock it. Well.
That's where I'm at.
And let's be honest, anytime you stick something in your body like that, you're taking a risk.
Sure.
So you're going to measure that risk of infection or,
Sure.
I'm not an expert phlebotomist.
No.
I've done it.
Yeah. I got to tell you,
like less than 12 times.
I'm not bad at shooting an IV. I'm not bad. I definitely infiltrate.
But if someone's really dehydrated and needs it,
yeah,
that's when it's hard. That's when it's very difficult.
Yeah, I definitely infiltrate more than I should. And for those of you who don't know what infiltrate means, it means that you go through one side of the vein and then all the way through the other side of the vein. And it's generally not a good thing. You don't want to do that. They infiltrated me like 5 times when I was getting ready for surgery. They had the hardest time getting me IV'd. I was starting to get irritated. I got poked so much through EMT school and stuff. Like I whatever, just poke me, but yeah, it's definitely one of the things I'd like to stock up on. Is I'd like to find a source for being able to get like a case of IV fluid.
Yeah, my lidocaine's all really expired now too.
You know what I'm learning? I'm doing some more research on medicine expiration dates are a little erroneous. Not all of them. I'm not saying that not all of them are, but a lot of them. A lot of them, they might lose a slight amount of effectiveness, maybe, but most of them are still very viable for years after their expiration date.
Yeah, we're talking decades now.
Yeah. Oh, decades expired. Okay, sounds great.
So doesn't mean we won't do it, because if you're wanting it, you're really wanting it, and it's worth the risk.
Absolutely.
But lidocaine can be a really dangerous thing to administer. You really got to be watching.
Yeah, you got to pay attention.
Signs. And to be honest, if we're using it in the middle of nowhere in the true wilderness medicine application, which is the only time it would happen for us.
Yeah, because it's the only time it fits our scope of practice.
You're really not somewhere where you can handle the negative side effects of lidocaine, so you're really screwed. So I don't know that we would hardly use it except life or death anyway, just to get someone to sit still long enough to try to save their life. Anyway, but yeah, that whole emergency medicine, nobody's coming situation.
Yeah.
It's a do what you got to do, the least worst situation, because they're going to die anyway.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's exactly right. We always,
med kits.
Yeah, we
I
should.
have, I, I have mine's within 30 feet.
I have some med gear, I think,
Yeah.
in my backpack.
After
But
show. I
yeah,
don't think
we'll
you've
do that.
seen my latest one.
My good med kit is in the truck, so like I'm not going to go out to the
Maybe
truck to
for the
get it.
bunker, we
Maybe
should
for
do
the
it.
bunker we could do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no,
People might be interested in that.
I think that that could be interesting. Yeah, for Patreon friends. So those of you who might be tuning in, you're watching this. This is our pregame show. So for about 15 minutes, Phil and I just kind of jam chat a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about current events here in just
Get
a
our
second.
get our sounds down, and
Yeah. We let our OCD get our stuff going here. But then we'll shift into talking about our kind of our book club scenario. We'll get into finishing book 1 and into book 2, because we tried that last week, and obviously any of you who tried to watch, you know that it was an absolute cluster. I was trying to broadcast while 2 children were gaming, and 1 child was streaming a video, and a man child was screaming. Yeah, and I couldn't go in the house and ask everybody to go blackout. So I think Starlink would be a perfectly appropriate way to go live, as long as I'm the only connection on it. In fact, I did do some live work later on that worked, but I did it really early in the morning, so it worked out, and nobody was awake yet. So, but anyway, do you have any current event stuff that you've been watching?
Let's just continue to push that. Lieutenant Colonel Scheller needs to be freed.
Oh man, absolutely.
It's not that he's not guilty.
It's not that he's
right?
not guilty, but the bottom line is, for me, is the fact that he's guilty. He's guilty
doing
of the
right
right
thing,
thing.
even though it's against not just his orders, but several things. It's against several things. What he's doing is not okay legally in any way.
Right.
It's just the right thing to do.
It was,
and
right
that's why we have special situations where our senators, our higher up officers, that's when they're supposed to intervene, is in these sorts of situations. The Inspector General, Department of Defense is supposed to get involved in these and say, look, what you did is wrong technically, but it was also the right thing to do, and so we're going to waive. But that's not going to happen. He's going to get railroaded.
Oh, he'll get railroaded.
He is. I mean, he's right now, he's in pretrial confinement, which is also legal for them to. I'm not arguing that it's not legal.
Right.
Even he said, look, they're going to do this to me, and it is legal. But it's the price of freedom and doing the right thing. And ultimately, support and defend the Constitution of the United States is what he's doing. It's our first oath.
Yep.
And it trumps, unlawful orders.
Well, there are those of us who we have stood up and we swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. Both, me on a law enforcement side, you on military side, and the oath is very similar, if not the same, for most of it. And that is the first thing. That's the first commitment, is to stand up for the Constitution.
That's correct. But there is a cost.
I do say a lot, and I know there will be Christians who are like, oh, but you're okay. Look, listen, I say it all the time that I'm a dual citizenship. That first, I'm a citizen of a king and a kingdom. When Jesus became the king of my life, that's absolutely true. But that king assigned me to be born in this country. And it was his will that put me in this country with this Constitution. So that means that that's where I'm at, and so that's my prerogative. I know other Christians will not have the same prerogative, and that's fine. They can be that if they want to. But my prerogative is, we're supposed to operate inside of the system that we have.
Yeah. I'd love to beat that horse with you.
Well, we could definitely do that. We could make that out of an episode. So the one thing that I saw current event wise, and I think another thing that we're supposed to be standing up for right now is, looked like there was an injunction came down late last night in New York. Today was the deadline for healthcare workers to either get the ouchie Fauci or to get out of their jobs. and it sounds like there was an injunction that stopped that today.
In New York.
In New York, yeah, because today was New York's deadline. There's other deadlines all throughout the country.
Because in Oregon, where you and I have a lot of friends,
Yep.
I saw a bunch of healthcare workers get walked off the job today.
Oh, did you? Was that today?
In the Willamette Valley, in my hometown.
Wow, really?
And people I know.
Wow, man, that sucks.
I was just commenting on the modern battlefield of Facebook about some of it.
I was also stirring the pot of bullcrap earlier. But I
was mostly just commenting how incredibly sad and embarrassing it is.
Yeah, that's exactly
it's
right.
Shameful. It's just shameful to treat people that way.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly right.
There's nothing redeeming about it.
That's exactly right. There's nothing redeeming. And honestly, for for people who claim to be Jesus followers, to like be rejoicing in the sufferings of these people who are losing their livelihoods, and in Oregon, they are working desperately hard to make sure that you can't even have unemployment if you get walked off the job for this particular reason. And I'll say this: I'm pretty sure the last time I checked that one of the primary tenets of our faith is we don't rejoice when others suffer, especially people who are brothers and sisters of ours in some contexts, especially in the context of these are people who have chosen a very self-sacrificing job. Yes, they make decent money. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't compensate them for the amount of time they're away from their families. It doesn't compensate them, for the personal danger to themselves and their families to be around all these infectious diseases. Like this is really abhorrent that Christians would be like, ha ha, you lost your job. That's pissing me off.
That's shameful and embarrassing. And again, it goes back to, people say you can't know people's hearts, but unfortunately, when you start to see nasty fruit, it's an indicator of someone who's clearly not walking a correct path on the inside.
Correct. That is.
And it's not, unless they're in my flock, it's not my job to point that out to them directly.
Correct.
But that also doesn't mean that I look at people who are walking that path and then promote them as, look at this Christ follower and the example that they're leading.
Right.
It's more of a, wow, you certainly don't see the fruit required to be making a proclamation of faith that they're making. They're clearly under the influence of something or someone and have made some very poor decisions.
Right.
So, but there are a lot of people in the modern evangelical church, especially the evangelical church, that are really, really confused by the culture and cult of wokeism.
Yep.
So, I mean, how far, we can't go too far down that road. The reality is, in the prepped pastor's world, what we're called to do, honestly, is separate.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
There can be no unity when someone is walking a path that is incorrect and non-reflective of Christ.
I got to tell you that right there has been itching at the back of my brain like a computer virus.
That sucks.
I mean, that right there it's going to make some changes. It's going to make some changes in me personally. It's going to make, because that's a reality, man. There's a time.
There's a cost.
There's a cost. There are moments, and they're few, but there are moments where we are charged by Scripture to distance ourselves from people who are being contrary to the kingdom. And you know what's funny is almost never is it a person who is outside of our faith. Those moments, we are never called I'm not never. I'm going to say almost never called to distance ourselves from people who are outside of our faith. We're always called to them, but there are these moments where we are called to treat someone like less than a pagan, essentially, in the context, and that's going to be tough, because there's some folks that we could maybe even talk a little bit about in the bunker later. I'm not going to name names there either, but I mean, we can get into a little bit more specifics in the bunker for sure.
Well, if anybody joins us there, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So yeah, man, we should definitely, we're 20 minutes into the pregame. Got a couple of different current event things. I will say, just back on the forced ouchie Fauci stuff, I was happy to see that the Oregon State Police basically said that blanket they're going to be accepting whatever exception people want to submit, whether it's medical or religious. I was called a badass this week. I might have mentioned this last week but I was officially called a badass this week by an up top, I believe it was brigade level, in the Army ish thing. We won't get too specific, but for the letter that I wrote for someone that was trying to articulate their religious exemption. So I was excited about that. And for those of you who want to get hot and bothered about that is a specific argument for other people, that it has to do with violating one's conscience. It actually has nothing to do whether I'm pro or anti ouchies.
I wrote a few letters, and I know you've written some letters. What we have done, both of us, is we have chosen to affirm a person's own beliefs.
That's exactly
not state that they should be excluded because of what we believe, because that's not what we do.
Correct. And the only statement of my collective local church, and I'll say local church because it doesn't reflect anything bigger than my local church, is just that we collectively reject anything being taken in or applied to the body that violates one's conscience. So again, going back to the affirmation of the person's personal conference, and that derives from 1 Corinthians chapter 8. If anybody wanted to go look, and it has to do with meat sacrificed from idols and the lesser faith and stronger faith, and so yeah, if you wanted a biblical argument for that, you could take a look at that. Just to remind you, Phil, if you didn't already, I went ahead and shared our broadcast on my personal account. So if you wanted to do that,
that's just what I was doing.
Outstanding. So,
we're live on our Facebook page, I see, and you double checked YouTube.
I did not. I just assumed that was working. I can double check it now.
It seems to have been.
I believe so. Yep. Looks like it's working. So, and really right now, YouTube is mainly just a storage place for us. Hopefully people find us, learn about who we are right now, and we'll add some other streaming platforms down the road. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Behind the Curve, man. So we tried to wrap up the book last week. We had such terrible reception that we didn't really get to. I had a couple of notes. In the finishing of book 1, we find them building some fences. We talked a little bit about the importance of that, but ultimately it was about community, right? The community around particular these 5 families or these 5 couples that have come together. And is it 6 now when you add Rob and Angel? No, that makes 5. That makes 5, right?
I think by the end of book 1, we have Luis there as well.
Oh yeah, and that's right. And by the end, I think they make him permanent in book 2. But yes, they have him there.
They do.
Spoiler
and let's
alert,
not
spoiler
forget
alert.
Grandma.
Oh, grandma. Spoiler. Yep. Grandma. Yeah. So grandma is kind of attached to the Rob and Angel scenario.
Right.
And Rob, for those of you who are following along, or maybe you're not following along, you definitely pick up a copy of these books. These are really, really, really great thought experiments. I'll say this. The Rob and Angel become the kind of the ranch managers or the farm managers, They handle like, selling eggs at the farmer's market. We'll get into that in just a second with book 2. But ultimately there's that. We talked a little bit about building your MAG, your mutual assistance group. So these 4 couples, they came together and formed a mutual assistance group, right? They decided to pool their resources, pool their money together and say, we are going to buy a piece of property that we can be self-sufficient on. Again, those of us who can't really dream about that because we're not doctors and, high-powered real estate people with a bunch of cash to burn, we got to boil that down to the micro, right? What can we do with our mutual assistance group when we are not talking about building a farm? Maybe that's collective food stuff. Maybe that's, I don't have a place for a chicken coop, but you have a place for a chicken coop, and I can help provide feed, and we can split the eggs and those kinds of things. I mean, so an example would be what we're doing at our church right now is we're raising meat chickens in the yard, the side yard. We have a vacant lot on either side of our church property, and we're on our 3rd batch. So we're our 3rd batch of 50 meat birds, and gosh, they're screaming along, dude. They're so big. 3 weeks. They're 3 weeks old, and this batch is the biggest batch we've had yet. It's so awesome. But half of them are going to go support some college missionaries, and the other half are going to go in our freezer to both support other people during the winter and our family. And we've got a handful of people in the church that are helping with that, and they'll show up and help with the butchery. It's great. Mutual assistance groups. You got anything to add about that?
If anybody follows Wrangler Star, he released a video today. Cody, it was right along the exact same lines about building your community. It was well done. And, I don't agree with everything he does.
No, but he's pretty.
But he's interesting and
solid.
entertaining.
He's interesting and entertaining, and he's got a lot of knowledge.
I don't agree with everything that he does.
Right. I got you.
Anyway, the video that he wrote today talked about leaving his church, and that was a small portion of it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Now he did
other
video.
Portions were about building community, and I thought he did a really good job of illustrating that and encouraging people to start forming these groups.
Yeah.
That the time where you're sharing resources and skills, some of it's already here, and it's going to become even more important in the coming days.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
It is. It's going to become even more important, I think, to know who your neighbors are, know who you can trust, who you can't trust. I think last week I brought up the grid of shame. Put your house at the middle of a grid, right, where there's a box all the way around. Your house is the middle box. Do you know the names of the people around you? And that's for those of you who are in residential areas, kind of like me. If you don't know your neighbors, it's now is the time. You don't want to be getting to know them during SHTF, because you will not know who to trust at that point. Like that, even if you get to know them today, you won't know who you can trust then. I mean, I think you would agree with that, right? But you'll at least,
and not only that, you can't know if somebody is out of place if you don't know who's supposed to be in place.
Sure, absolutely. No, absolutely.
So
the other thing that wraps up book 1 is the families start collecting a mass collection of medical supplies. And we touched on that a little while ago about the idea of maybe stocking up on some IV fluids and putting those down in the bunker and getting ready for some like I just recently had the ability or the opportunity to pick up a bunch of tourniquets, chest seals, Israeli bandages, enough to build 5 or 6 kits. And so I had to go back to Missouri. So I was really excited to be able to give a kit to my dad and a kit to my brother-in-law.
Blowout kits.
Yeah. Primarily. Yeah. So you were talking about, trauma kits, and especially, I mean, my family is an hour from the hospital. Like if you get a sucking
minutes into hours,
you get a sucking chest wound, an hour from the hospital and you don't have something to deal with that, and by the way, there's lots of things you can deal with it with. Your credit card can become a treatment, some duct tape, some Saran wrap, right? Like you got to and you don't want to learn, by the way, you don't want to learn those skills in the middle of a fight. Okay. So please, please, please take the time to learn some of that stuff. If you'd like for us to do some videos on Stop the Bleed, let us know in the comment section. We would be glad to facilitate some videos on Stop the Bleed, because that is a really critically important training. But these guys, of course, there's 3 doctors in the group in the book, right? So they're amassing IV stands and exam tables and X-rays. I think they found a clinic that was closing down, much like the dentist office that you talked about during pregame, or the dentist offices, and they were able to buy a bunch of equipment, pennies on the dollar, to kind of be able to set up a private practice that was really just for them.
Yeah, I thought they did more than the average person could do, but right place, right time. And I've been a part of building a small clinic from the private side of things.
Oh, that's right. You have
actually
done that.
Pretty amazing what you can find out there on eBay and other places.
Yeah.
I know that it's kind of funny, but the first borescope that I had as a mechanic doing mechanic work was actually in old colonoscopy endoscope.
That's awesome.
So the focus range was a little different than your average borescope, and the diameter of the tube. So
that's awesome. See, and I have a borescope, a Milwaukee version that I hope I never have to use to do a colonoscopy. So I mean that would be right.
I don't know what I'm looking at, so
yeah. I wouldn't know either. I wouldn't know either. Something that looked inconsistent to the rest of the platform, I guess. I don't know.
I suppose.
Yeah, considering my mom just went through both a colonoscopy and like a GI tract deal, and then she also had to swallow one of the camera pills that went through the whole system. Which, by the way, I'm just really excited about. There was we saw. I think
little flash in a camera.
Yeah, I think we saw a legitimate miracle. My mom had a GI bleed, and
cool.
And they never found it, but she didn't die. That's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. A lot of people were praying, and she got a couple transfusions, or one big transfusion, and blood transfusion, and then it went away. Whatever was going on went away. So she is back in Florida and happy as a clam, I guess, at this point. So
that's amazing. That's awesome.
So I'm really, really happy that we still had a functional medical system. I will say, kind of tilting back toward medical systems and the it was nice to be in a free state. Let me say that. You know what that feels like. You live in a free state. It was nice to be in a free state again. I found out that a friend of mine who I graduated high school with, she went in to give her resignation because she didn't want to get the Fauci, or the Fauci, or whatever we're calling it. And they were like, no, we don't accept your resignation, because Missouri as a state never laid down the mandate. The hospitals are responding to the federal mandate, and they're playing the game well.
Right.
So they're like, no, we don't accept your resignation. Walk through that door, and HR will tell you how to write your exemption letter.
Nice.
So way to go, free states.
To somebody, it was a Texas representative, gave a really good speech today on the floor. Of course, all the Democrats stood up and walked out on him, but
was that the traitorous one with the eye patch?
No.
Oh, okay, just checking.
No, it wasn't Crenshaw, and I like Crenshaw, so
I liked him. I liked him until he voted for red flag laws last week.
Really?
Yep. Okay, sorry, we're off track here. Perimeter fencing, dig in, towers, high places. Is where we end the book. Rob,
choke points.
Yeah, choke points. I love how Rob at the end of the book is like, we have a problem coming, right? They now know that most likely the leak came from the DA's office, right? The assistant DA, and they're like, we know there's going to be protests here. And he was like Johnny on the spot going, we got to build a fence. We got to build a fence. If you listen to any of the Southern Prepper 1 videos, one of the biggest things that he's like, please amass some fencing, get some fencing, you know, have a plan of what fencing you're going to take down and where you're going to put it during SHTF, right? You know, and so for me, I've really been inspired by the concept of like, what are we going to do about like real solid fencing? And, you know, again, I got to boil it down to the micro because the macro is pretty unattainable for me. You know, when I look at the places that I dream about bugging out to, if that day ever comes, I sure hope I'm able to pick up some fencing on the way down the hill, you know?
Yeah. Preparation is definitely the key.
Oh yeah.
Reality hits us all though.
It's true. It's true. What's the saying? No plan endures first contact with the enemy. Is that the
That's
saying?
truth. That is a saying. And the other is that you fail to your highest level of training.
You fail to your highest level of training. And that hope is not
an answer.
A plan.
Yeah.
Hope is not a plan.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a Jack Carr one. But
that's a Jack Carr. He says that a lot, man. We're gonna get into it. When we do the terminal list, you're gonna hear hope is not a plan a lot. Yeah, exactly right. So, or no, hope is not a strategy. That's what it is. Hope is not a strategy. That's what he says. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway. But no.
Failing to plan is every time a plan to fail.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you know, here's the bottom line. You know, I think we know a lot of people who would call themselves preppers that they're like, well, I'm gonna build a fence out of bullets. I'm gonna throw them lead things down range, and I'm gonna, you know, there's nobody coming near my house. Well, listen, man, you can't stay up 24/7, 365. You cannot. It's not an option. Like, you need some perimeter, like real serious perimeter, man. If I could, I would have 45 shipping containers, and you'd be able to circle them things up, man. Like, you know, that would be rad, but that's not.
In my mind, fencing is actually the one time I agree with gray man operations.
Oh, really? So you're going to do more like the caltrops and you know, you like that stuff a little bit better.
I have engaged passive fencing.
Passive fencing. So like planting the right kind of bushes and
people don't realize they're being funneled.
Ooh, there you go. I like that. Yeah. And is that primarily
it's
just
already
like
there,
how you lay out your buildings and like how you lay out your
if you get that choice, that's awesome. But
sure.
Yeah, you can control, you mentioned bushes, what plants you plant. But you know, where do you pile your brush? Where do you put your grass clippings?
Right.
Where did you park your car, your spare? Where'd you stack your winter tires?
Sure.
Little things like that just don't seem like they're much of a thing.
Yeah.
Can be really well.
Can be strategic.
Yep.
That's true.
Placement of lights, placements of auditory early warning devices. Then there's the silent ones. I have a host of silent early warning devices that set off alarms in the house.
Yeah.
And in the office. So
I was reading the other day. You mentioned lights, and I want to touch on that.
Yeah.
In the realm of when people don't know they're being funneled, like that lights aren't specifically placed on the area. How do I say this? They're not. They're
people
positioned.
will avoid the lights.
The people will avoid the light. There you go. People will avoid the light. You know, have you created a place of shadow that you want people to go down? There you go.
I have a kill box.
Okay, easy with the kill box stuff, man. We're gonna get kicked off of Facebook.
I think that's actually what it's called. It's what's on the.
Oh, is that that's the name of the product? Oh, okay, cool.
Actually, what it's called. Yeah. It's a military term. It's in the Army manual.
It's in the Army manual. Yeah. Well, there's lots of things in the Army that are offensive to people on the interwebs, but you know. So, have you looked at any of the products with like the tripwire stuff that like fires off like a blank or like a shotgun round or anything like that?
Primer.
Shotgun primer, just the primer. We would never use it for anything else. Have you looked at any of that stuff? Some of that, okay, all right. Some of these things maybe we could talk about in the bunker, but I haven't had the opportunity to pick any of that stuff up. But I will say that a lot of that stuff is way cheaper than fencing. I mean, way cheaper.
Depending on where you get it, but yeah. They all have their weaknesses, and no one thing is going to be the one solution. But yeah, right. I have about a dozen of those.
Okay.
I brought one. I have one we could put in the bunker. I was going to show it last week in the bunker.
Except we never got a bunker, so we never got to go to the bunker.
Didn't make it to the bunker.
So why don't you lead us off on the beginning of book 2?
You want to roll into book 2?
Yeah, let's roll into book 2.
It's called Behind the Curve.
I don't have a graphic for book 2, so I'm just going to leave book 1 up there.
Okay.
I love how the dogs are characters in these books. I'm going to keep saying that. You're going to probably hear me say that on every episode. I love how the dogs are actually characters in these books.
Yeah. So you get some epilogue in book 2, or prologue rather, not epilogue.
Yeah,
prologue.
That
helps to set up the situation. For again, the ADA kind of goes off kilt and brings down some fire. But here it is. Chapter 10 talks about health inspectors. Some of the way that we're going to find out very quickly. And when things go sour, if anybody remembers, Oregon was a really good example, actually, because the state of Oregon used OSHA to enforce their mandates.
They still are. And the federal government's going to try to do that too. And
the feds are using, they always use the IRS. There's almost more IRS law enforcement. In Alaska, there's almost more law enforcement that are employed by the IRS than there are employed by the state of Alaska.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty scary situation in Alaska. But the point being, when the tyrannical mandates and unconstitutional laws start coming down, they're enforced through non-elected, appointed departments,
right?
Such as health inspectors.
Yeah. Easily
one of the ways that those who grow their own food get regulated heavily is through health inspectors, food health inspectors. And some of that's kind of relaxed a little bit because suddenly it was okay to, leave the poop all over your produce and then go to a parking lot and call it a farmer's market. It's organic.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, we see the inspectors in this book become the seizure people. Like they start seizing this stuff to be able to feed.
And towards the end of the book, I think. Well, they shut down these farmers markets, but they're not doing it because of the safety of the food.
No,
they're doing it through the concepts of redistribution.
Redistribution.
You have more, and other people have less, and so we're going to play the part of the government Robin Hood and redistribute what you have.
Yeah.
Also, we don't like you, so by redistribute we mean take it all.
Sure.
Because you should have offered it up willingly to begin with. And so punitively we're going to punish you. And we see that happening right now in states of Texas and Florida, and where there's punitive actions for COVID medication to combat the China flu.
Right.
And the government in D.C., the executive branch of the current administration, is single-handedly affecting what states get what distributions.
It's
And
true.
it seems to be by what the election results were.
Yeah. Or the ones who are compliant and the ones that play ball the way that office wants it played, they get the toys, they get the resources, and everyone who is not doesn't.
Yeah, it becomes difficult when fictional books start manifesting to be real life situations. And there's almost no point in this book that you read and can't very quickly find a real life example of it happening right now.
You know, it's funny. This was going to come up, and this is later down the road. Okay, this is later down the road, but I think we touch on it a little bit toward the end of book two, definitely in book three. But the one thing that was like in the back of my mind, kind of like the real giant fictionalization, is the like quarantine camps in this book series, and they
Yeah.
become a way bigger piece in book three. But I know they're mentioned and touched on in book two. And man, I'm starting to see like I'm not personally on TikTok, but like a lot of people will post their videos from TikTok um,
Facebook
to
and
to
other
you know
platforms
yeah
now.
other
Yeah.
platforms now, or like so like I'm not into like clicking the link through into TikTok and then watching it there, but like if people like also post it on YouTube, well then I'll watch it on YouTube, you know. But I mean where they're like, what in the world could this facility be? What is this facility? Look at these gates and look at how what's going on. What are they building over here? Like this looks a lot like a lockdown camp, and all of a sudden it's starting to feel a little bit less fictional. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I try not to think too much about it. I don't think it's necessarily something new. It's also probably not as bad as we think
Yet,
yet.
yet, yeah, yeah,
Um,
simultaneously yet. Well, I
I
mean,
just know that I'm not going to anywhere like that.
no,
Um,
no, definitely not.
I think, well, the next book series that we're jumping into, we'll touch on that a lot
A lot
more
more, a lot
because a
more.
lot of people are going to go very willingly.
Yeah, they will. And there will be circumstances to create willingness. We'll talk a lot about that down the road. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. There will be like really high level manipulation of folks to motivate them to go to those places. And I mean, like,
And
let's be
I
let's
don't think we're going to have to do that, honestly.
you don't
Maybe
think so?
that stuff will take place if they need to. No, if I was to walk from where I am right now, right, and interact with the next 20 people and just ask some basic questions about how long can you go when the power shut off tomorrow,
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah,
or things like that. The
right,
reality is by day 30
yeah,
at most,
right.
80% of the population is going to be beating down the doors
Yeah,
of these places,
please let us
begging
in. Give
to
us
get in.
food. Yeah,
Yeah.
give us whatever shot you require for us to live inside of those walls.
Well, we'll see, because a lot of people were escorted off the job today in enough states to make a difference,
Yeah,
and um, we'll see what happens to them. Um,
yeah, it's true.
I
It's true.
guess the next couple of months will be an indicator. I know that I don't go to the grocery store very often. I ran through because I wanted to get some eggs the other day, and
Cause you
meat
cause you don't have friends with
is
chickens.
um, I, I do, but they're stockpiling,
Nah.
right? Um,
And
and
for
my
and for
stockpile ran out.
and for everybody who said, "How do you stockpile eggs?" Talk about water glassing. Talk
A couple
about
of ways,
yeah,
yeah. There's
talk
a
about
couple of ways.
freeze drying. Talk about freeze drying. Those kinds of things. There's
Well, yeah, freeze drying is one way, but no, I'm all about that water glassing. And that's the thing, though. If you don't have your lye and the materials, the basic, the stuff that you need to do that,
yeah,
you're not going to get it when you need it. It's going to be
no,
too late.
No.
So anyway,
And it
I
doesn't
went to
take a lot of
3
land.
stores to get eggs because I buy them. I usually get 2 cases of 5 dozen.
Yeah.
And it lasts us for a while.
Right.
It's the most economical way to get them. And I have a very good cold storage system to maintain them for a long time.
Right.
Anyway, it took me 3 stores to find eggs.
Wow.
And while I was there, I walked through the meat department and the dairy because the eggs were there. And I buy the large blocks of cheese.
Yeah.
I get sharp cheese, right?
Yeah.
And it's, what is it, like a 5-pound?
Yeah. 5-pound block.
It's big. So one of the things that I did coming out of, we talked about that conference that I was at, the chaplain training. We came back and we just went and we bought stuff like that.
Yeah.
We had some food. We had about 6-ish months to not go to the store.
Yeah.
We made that be 18.
Yeah.
Well, some of that's running out.
Yeah, man. It's time to refresh.
The cheese was $1 less than twice the price that I purchased it at. Or this was March of 20.
Yeah.
So not even quite 2 years, almost a year and a half in 18 months. Okay. I bought some chicken, but not much.
Right.
It was 3 times the price per pound that it was the last time I bought it. Beef, buying primal 20-pound sections is 3 times the price that it was in March of 2020.
Yep.
And what did I do? I walked out of this. I did buy the eggs, and that's all I bought. And the shelves were pretty bare.
And that's recently. That's
It was earlier this week.
Yeah.
It was earlier this week. So the last week of September of 2021.
I got to tell you, man, I love Alaska, and I know you absolutely love Alaska. You beat the drum of Alaska so hard. I will tell you that I think one of the biggest places of
it's a difficult place to survive.
It is the supply chain is even more sensitive there than it is the rest of the country. And we've got the rest of the country is seeing it too. Because I mean, like I was at the grocery store today. I was just putting a gift basket together to a wounded officer that almost got to ride in the Forever box yesterday, and we are praising God today that he did not. And you know, until I have permission to share his story, I'm not going to. But you know, I'll just say this. Can I just say this?
Was he able to put rounds on target?
No. Well, it wasn't that. It was change freaking lanes when you see people pulled over. Like, get your ass into the other lane. It kills a lot of officers, and I almost lost a friend.
Fixate on those flashy lights.
Yep, I almost lost a friend last night because a dumbass trucker didn't get over. Period. That's all the story that I have permission to share. So get over when you see emergency vehicles. Not even when you see emergency vehicles. You see someone broke down on the side of the road. He was assisting someone. He was assisting someone who was broken. Just slow down. Make space. Anyway, all that stuff. Anyway, but supply chain is, dude, it's a mess everywhere. It's got to be more sensitive in Alaska, wouldn't you say?
It is, but we have a bit more of a, you know, it's a normal thing to go to the store and need something and find out that you can't get it.
Right.
That's really normal for us. You know, unless you live in Los Anchorage, that's usually different there. But it happens to them
Los Anchorage
occasionally.
That's great.
But for us that are on the Kenai Peninsula, or you know, more than a couple hours drive away from the major centers, it's really normal to not be able to get what you need, and so you buy more than you need to make sure that you can get through.
Right.
The other thing that happens to us here is a lot of our people, our population, are seasonally employed.
Right.
And so they buy stuff when they have the money, and then they get through sometimes 6 months of no jobs.
Right.
In order to, go back to work again. Even slope workers. It sounds glamorous to be gone, but a lot of slope workers work a 6-week shift, and then they're off completely unpaid
Right.
for up to 4 weeks.
Right.
So that's a month. How many people could take a month off and not get paid? So you learn how to budget, and you learn how to buy things when they're on sale,
Right.
and you learn how to make do with a lot of recipes, things that you don't have.
Right.
Right? Our previous generations in America knew this.
Yeah.
We live in a land of plenty.
Yeah.
And even in Alaska, we have it better off than my grandmother had it in Iowa when
Sure.
she was growing up in the the 40s.
Sure. Right.
And for some people, that means the 1940s.
The 1940s. That's right. That's exactly right. You know, it's interesting. Today, I heard a story. I went out, did a couple hours worth of fishing this morning, and with a brother, and he was telling me that his dad is an original, like, pre-Vietnam era Navy SEAL. You know, UDT guys.
Yeah.
And they're like very old ways kind of people, man. Like, they are very, very old ways, and generous too, man. They're really, really cool. But they are actually traveling to Virginia this week to teach his cousin how to pressure can chicken. They wanted a little family reunion, and they were like, hey, you know, when you come, would you bring your pressure canners with you and teach us how to pressure can chicken? Which you know that Amy and I actually made a big part of who we are this last year. So every couple of months we do about 40 pounds of chicken that we pressure can and we put in the pantry. And so our prep stock is rotating, right? We're not just pressure canning stuff and then sticking it in hoping that, you know, it's got a 25-year shelf life. It doesn't. You know, it's got a couple of year shelf life, so we want to rotate it. But yeah, it's a big deal. So they're
a
actually,
lot of preps that I purchased or canned, like you, we've been using them.
Yeah.
Because we've had a pandemic. We've had supply chain issues. We've had stores shut down.
Right.
We've had highways get closed. We've had a year and a half of state workers not going to work here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
No one in the state of Alaska has gotten a death certificate issued in like 8 months because the state workers are just so inept at doing their job.
Wow.
We had a hard time getting, my wife and I both have professional licenses that require renewal, right?
Right.
She's got one that's due every 2 years that the state has to, do 30 seconds work for. And it took 3 months to get them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, only after they got in trouble from the feds for not doing it.
Right. Absolutely.
It's really been difficult getting people to go to work. If you work a job where you are allowed to be lazy and get paid anyway, I mean, the problem for us, I don't know if you have this problem down there. Our state is such a low paying employer that they can't keep anyone of any value.
Yeah. Our state is a high payer. But still though, man, like they ground, man, folks are just, they have taken the pill of panic and fear. And there's a lot of folks that are just content to sit at home and take the money from the government and just live on the precursor to the universal basic income that they're basically just, they've created a scenario, you know. Oh, good. We've got some nasty comments. We got you might
Really?
want to go block somebody on YouTube for me. Yeah, if you want to go police
I closed
that.
it down because my connection was bad.
Yeah. Oh, that's all right. No, yeah. So, yeah, that's like great. Good. So, and everybody just ran to YouTube to go see, oh, what's going on?
Hurry up. I'm almost there.
Right. Exactly. So I
I
think,
might already be gone. I don't see it.
maybe it wasn't YouTube. Maybe it was Facebook, but I don't think so.
Oh, it was Facebook.
So anyway, so let's keep cruising through, book 2. I think,
You go ahead. I'm going to go on a hunt.
Yeah, you go on a hunt. So I think one of the big things that we see in book 2 is we see the FEMA districts get activated. So we should probably talk a little bit about the FEMA districts. What you need to understand is that FEMA is one of those agencies. How do I? Yeah. So somebody's like, "How do I find you on YouTube?" I can barely hear you guys. I'm sorry.
I think whatever platform that was, I think already pruned it.
Oh, so, yeah, maybe.
Hey, Sarah, hang on one second. I'll give you a link.
Yeah, throw a link down there, and do me a favor, Phil. Throw a link in the for the bunker too. Throw a link for that. We'll tell people a little bit more about the bunker and just a little.
Well, I see Sarah's commenting on Facebook, so go to that page. I just made a post today.
There you go.
And the links are pinned in the group and the page.
There you go, Sarah. So try that. I don't know why you're getting low audio levels. I'm showing here that we have really good audio levels, but I mean, I can definitely push them a little hotter.
You're loud on my ears.
Yeah. So I'll turn my headphones down and push
everybody get ready.
Get ready, everybody.
Volume's getting pumped.
Yeah, we're getting there. So, Sarah, tell me if that's a little bit better for you. We just adjusted that in the broadcast for you. So we can talk a little bit about the FEMA districts with me here. FEMA is one of those agencies that people. It can be incredibly helpful, and it can be incredibly terrifying at the same time. They can grab a hold of so much power that they can control so much. Like, so even let's just go back to Hurricane Katrina. That was the first real gigantic screw up that we saw. We saw FEMA just kind of obliterate a community by not getting resources when it needed to get there. They can really either they can get the ball rolling, or they can gum up the works. And I mean, one of the things that we saw FEMA do at Hurricane Katrina is we saw them start going door to door, confiscating people's guns, or ordering local law enforcement to go confiscate people's firearms. That was per FEMA guidelines. And so if you read this Behind the Curve book, you'll start going, well, FEMA can't possibly have that kind of power. Oh, yes, it does. It actually it can supersede the federal government, the legislative branch. And again, these are non-elected officials, right? So when the FEMA districts get activated, they absolutely could show up to a farm just like this one and say, give me all your livestock for the greater good, for your protection. We're going to go equally distribute this. Or one of the things we see in book 2 is, oh, you have the sickness. We have to take your livestock to make sure that we have to take your livestock to make sure that it doesn't go to waste, because there's people that need that, when the supply chain gets all jacked up. Now, thankfully we did not see a pandemic level this last 2 years. But one of the things that I talk to people about prepping, when I talk to people about getting ready for hard times, it has everything to do with, okay, just look at what we've experienced and just dial up the intensity. Just make it 30% worse. What if the governor shuts off the gas stations to everyone who's not an essential worker to limit travel? What are you going to do? What's your response? Do you have some fuel that's saved up that you've got stabilized in the background that you can have? And by the way, that's not fictional. That almost happened in Oregon in 2020. The governor was.
It happened to us.
The 15 minutes. It did happen to you. So
ours was artificial, though. Ours was not by government mandate.
Oh, okay.
It happened just through the nature of shutdowns.
Well, and we
They had
pipeline get shut down
scarcity.
by hackers. We saw that. That was a reality. That's not fictional. Those pipelines that got shut down on the East Coast really
People
legitimately
are not
affected.
talking about the logistics of dispatching truckers right now, right? That entire software
Yeah.
is currently being affected by ransomware.
Right.
If you talk to anyone about why grocery shelves are empty, it's because of the trucking situation happening with ransomware right now.
Right now. So again, like, when you start thinking, well, how should I prepare? Okay, I want you to take reality, take what happened last year, whether it's the Portland ice storm, the Texas ice storm, the pandemic, food shortages, and just go, what if it was 30% worse? Right? Like, you don't have to dream about EMPs. You don't have to dream about, nuclear strikes from Russia. All things that are like actually like real possibilities. I mean, far be it. Maybe they're way distant, like not likely, but they are possible. You don't even have to think about those things. All you have to think about is reality. What if the pipeline shut down that happened on the East Coast? What if it happened? What if it affected 30% more of the country? Because we saw panic buying of fuel in Oregon because of what was happening in Kentucky and, South Carolina, because people were like, oh, what if it happens here? And they were running down, and I mean, like, filling 50-gallon barrels in the back of their trucks. I saw it happen.
Plastic trash bags.
Whoa.
Yes.
Dude, that was spectacular. You saw the video, right? Where they were filling up garbage bags full of fuel? Oh.
No, I saw it like Safeway grocery bags, food,
Well, I saw like hefty bags, like the hardcore
That's
construction
slightly
bags.
better.
Slightly better, but like, listen, man, you've only got 3 minutes.
I saw a Canadian do that in Bellingham once.
I learned to see, this is why that people who don't grow up in the country, this is why they don't know what they don't know. Okay. I learned, and you probably learned, when I was very young, when I was stealing gasoline from my dad's lawnmower to put in the go-kart, right? Like, I'm out of gas in the go-kart. Where can I find gasoline? Oh, there's gas in the riding lawnmower. I should go take the gas from the riding lawnmower. So first of all, you learn how to not choke on gas while you are siphoning with a chunk of garden hose that you cut off. I'm not saying that I didn't get disciplined for these decisions, okay? But then, like, what do I put the gas in? I can't find a gas can, probably because my dad was smart enough to hide the gas can from me, right? I've got this red Solo cup. I don't need a lot of gas to have some fun with the go-kart. I'll just, right, and I'll fill my red Solo cup, and then I'm gonna walk.
How far did you make it?
10 feet. I made it 10 feet, right? Like, I'm going to walk this 100 feet to my go-kart and pour it into my go-kart. Except I ended up wearing an entire red Solo cup full of gas, because I learned that gas can dissolve certain types of plastic, like, and you don't know what you don't know, right? So they're thinking, I'm going to go get me a couple of trash bags full of gasoline. This is going to be great. Right. And quite frankly, I was dying. I was dying laughing. I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be really bad. That gas is going to go into the trunk of their car. That's going to go through the cracks in the floorboards. It's going to hit the exhaust, and boom. And I saw the video of the car on the Florida Expressway that just went, and
that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So
it's a good mic trick. I can't do that with mine.
No, don't do it with yours. You'll kill everyone. But no, man, it's bad. So do you have fuel? Like, have you stored it up?
And even stabilized fuel. So now we're in the point where if you made the mad dash to do all those things, and maybe you did it in a panic in March or April of last year,
right?
It's all even with stabilizer now.
Yeah, you got to rotate it. You got to rotate it. 6 months is the max on stabilizer. It's the max. Yeah. So
it's supposed to get you through a winter.
Right. It's supposed to get you through a winter. And I mean, and you can keep stabilizing. You can keep adding more stabilizer, but even then you're going to reach saturation eventually, and you're going to you're degrading your fuel, you know? So it's like, how important is that motor to you that you're pouring that stockpiled stabilized fuel into, right? It's partially,
I know I put away 100 gallons of diesel.
right.
And the problem that I have is the truck that I have is a little finicky about its diesel source.
Right.
And I'm not putting that 100 gallons in my diesel, because my diesel will cost me $10,000 when it blows up.
Now, will that be the same if you ever decided to delete all of the silly government stuff off of it? It would be it would still be the same.
Yeah, this is a different issue.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a too small of a fuel pump, and it overheats easily, and it's very, very sensitive to any contaminants.
Okay.
Water, dirt, alcohol, you name it, any contaminants. And cans are lovers of contaminants.
Right. They are. They just it's like they were like little magnets. They're magnets.
I miss having my old 7.3 diesel that, I mean, I used to just run jet fuel in it. It'd burn anything.
Right. Well, you accidentally ran gasoline. Yeah. You accidentally
ran like 6 gallons of gasoline in Canada up in Destruction Bay. Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. That's wild. So that's one of the things that
Still
we
got
see.
like 12 miles per gallon with it.
That's one of the things we see in book 2 is that they put in a pretty good stockpile of fuel. They put in some underground tanks. Underground tanks can definitely keep things stable for longer because it's less contact to UV and those.
So the killer of fuels is condensation in water.
Right.
So, the enzymes in the diesel, they come in the water, and it all happens through condensation. So when they bury it underground, you stabilize that temperature so there aren't the swings.
Right.
And then you don't get the condensation issues.
Right.
So
exactly.
You nailed it.
And so they, they did. And I would say this, we had a conversation during episode 1 about like how to buy a car, like, what's the right car to buy for SHTF, that kind of thing. And I would be really honest with you. I just bought a truck, a used pickup. And as far as long-term planning goes, it's the wrong truck. It's not a diesel. Like diesel fuel lasts a lot longer. It degrades a lot slower. I mean, if you don't have some specialty equipment.
Yeah, modern diesels are maybe not the greatest idea either.
But an older diesel that can run anything like that 6.7 Ford, that was a great motor for just
7.3
or 7.3. Sorry, yeah, 7.3. Little Listexia there.
My 6.7 is a great motor, but it's anything that's modern with these new emissions, it's not going to run it any well. And since we're talking about it, how do you think this new mileage tax is going to be enforced? Do you think they're going to trust the whole nation to volunteer their mileage on their taxes every year?
Nope, they're gonna want to put GPS trackers in our vehicles.
What do you mean put them?
Right. You carry it in your pocket, everybody. You carry it in your pocket. That's right.
Every vehicle has been manufactured in the last 10 years has already got them in there.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to disable, though. That's not a hard thing.
I think that is true. But as we get to more modern systems in these vehicles, so my BMW motorcycle was a good example, that everything on there, including turn signals, works off of what the computer tells it to do.
Right.
And so disabling things in the code, it's more and more difficult to do.
It's true. No, you're absolutely right. I know that up until, even last year, especially in a vehicle, the primary way you just disconnect the antenna, the GPS antenna.
You'd physically find it
and turn it off. Anybody who does digital security stuff through college, they're one of the first things they do is turn off the GPS in their vehicles. Now that means you can't use your nav system. That is now disabled, right?
Yep.
There's a price to pay. Freedom always comes with slight inconveniences, right? But yeah, absolutely. That's a big portion of kind of what's going on there. But so we basically just see through this book the thought experiment of what is life like 30% worse. So they talk a lot about civil unrest, right? You know, when what happens when and one of the things that we saw here in Oregon a ton, probably more than other places, what happens when extremists are weaponized, and you can sick certain protesters on certain groups or agencies or people. You know, there was protests happening in front of law enforcement officers' homes, fecal matter, you know, personal homes once they've been doxxed. We talked a little bit, I think last week, about what being doxxed is. You know, when your documents get out for the world to see, you know, when they can come and protest on your front porch, you know, and then how, you know, do you have a plan for how you're going to respond to that? What happens if it's 30% worse? Like, do you have an idea? And I think that this book series like this give you ideas. Like, that's the most important part of it. Thought experiment of like, hey, well, you know, do we have a fence built? And here's a spoiler alert. Okay, spoiler alert, because I think this happens in book 3. But spoiler alert. Did you build your fence inside or outside of the setbacks? Because you can build your fence all day long, but they can go, actually, we have the right to come 50 feet on either side of the power poles. You know, and so now all of a sudden, like, again, which I think if anyone out there is living in the delusion that private property exists, you know, that
show you legally how you don't own your property. Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of your bag. Like your situation, like you can show you that, you know, I mean, it's like, stop paying your taxes for a minute and you'll figure out what property you own and don't own.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
You know,
no, but setbacks, I mean, that's an easy one. Don't build in areas where someone, whether you or someone else, has already agreed in writing not to build.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you have permission to build there. Sometimes you have permission to go, oh, you know, the power company doesn't care whether you build a fence and where you build it, as long as they can have access whenever they want. And then if the power company has access, then any government agency that oversees the power company or regulates the power company, they now have access to that as well. You know,
the property owners need to understand what easements are on their property.
For sure.
And it is very, I would say it's simple. In some states, it's easier than others, but it's a very possible for every property owner to put their hands on the documents that specifically outline what you can and cannot do on those easements. And there's a lot of different kinds of easements.
Right.
The ones that we should be concerned about in building of fences is historical, right? So there's a trail. Right? Somebody gets on and says, well, I've been cross-country skiing across this property. I'm the 3rd generation now. We do it every winter. And so I have a right to continue to do that across your property. And there's right and very wrong ways to handle that. And quite honestly, you can very easily, if you're looking for property, get yourself into a situation where you buy quite the can of worms because you don't understand property rights and what is and isn't allowed. And there's a pretty famous case of that in Homer, Alaska recently with a very prominent country singer. And he ultimately pulled stakes and left state.
Really?
Because he could not get satisfaction through our local court system. And our borough planning departments and other things, and the little trail bunnies won. That they have a right to do their cross-country skiing within 10 feet of his back windows and take all the pictures they want.
Really? Which country?
So
which country music singer was
I
that?
don't remember his name. You would know him.
I probably would. I like country music, so.
Yeah, I do too.
Wow, I'm totally gonna.
I mean, it's not hard to look up if anybody wants to Google that.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google that. Somebody out in the internet land, Google that.
Pretty awful.
Yeah,
it's pretty awful.
That's ridiculous, man. That's crazy.
Those are real life situations. Those do happen.
Well, you know, I mean, even just the understanding of, like, do you own the water under your property? Most Western states, you do not.
Right.
You know, you don't have the right to just punch a well whenever you want. You don't have the right to do that. And
Well,
down
right. But
in
there's a
Lake.
process almost everywhere. And that's the thing. You need to push those processes when you're not in a
Desperate.
stressful situation.
Right. There it is. There was a saying down in Lake County, Oregon, back where I used to live, that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. You just
Ranch
don't.
land's been like that a long time.
Ranch land's been like that for a long, long, long time. And now, like, we see Southern Oregon in disputes with the native tribes, and they're trying to say, nope, you don't own any of that water. Actually, all that water belongs to us.
Flood irrigation in the
Yep.
Willamette Valley. They don't do it out there, do they?
Flood irrigation? Oh, sure. Yeah, they do. They do some flood irrigation.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
I know it's a big deal in Washington.
it is a big deal in Washington. I was about to half dock somebody, and I'm not going to do that. I was going to reference someone we might both know. Anyway.
Oh yeah. Well, I was thinking of one, my own family dealing with that.
Okay.
In Idaho as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, so we'll wrap up book 2
That's
next.
mostly book 2.
Yeah, we'll wrap up book 2. The one thing too is the farmers market. I want to say this, you should be connected to your farmers market, okay? And I'll just throw shade at myself. I've done a terrible job of being connected to our farmers market because our farmers market actually they operate like totalitarian dictators.
Farmers markets are like ham radio operators.
Oh, buddy, they can be. They certainly can be. I think this book portrays the best case scenario for farmers markets.
I've never seen it like that.
I have.
Maybe in the Carolinas. I don't know.
I have. I've seen it close to that. Maybe not totally like that. And then last year I was watching. They're outside, and last year during the craziest parts of the pandemic, there was a lot of people who were like, look, I have goods and extra vegetables, but I don't have enough to warrant paying for this crazy booth. They have exorbitant booth fees and all these other things. And so I was looking at starting a farmer's market at our church in the parking lot. And dude, I got
stop being Jesus.
I know, man. I hate serving people and loving the people who are in need. But man, I got legitimate political pressure. I got folks that were like, I don't think you're going to do that. I don't think you're going to do and it ultimately worked out to where we didn't. I didn't get Jedi mind tricked into it, but it was like,
they're not surprised.
There was actually not as much need as I was led to believe. That's actually the scenario. There was not as much need, and not to mention there was a community table at the farmers market, and there was stuff, and so taking on the headache and liability of bringing that onto the church. You've been
through the same thing that I've been through.
Right.
When you're a pastor of a church, you get approached by people that will try to press their crazy and convince you to take astronomical leaps on very thin limbs.
Right.
To help them, even with good intentions. But a lot of times they don't. They're using you to further their own agenda or get somebody back or whatever. And the church is an easy target because we're willing to help people.
We are. And,
we like to fix things.
Sure. Yep, that's exactly right. And one of the things, honestly, that I saw is there was some need. It was really just a matter of what kind of headache was I going to bring down on my church, and so ultimately the risk reward matrix just didn't factor. So we just didn't go down that road. But, I think that knowing your local farmers market, having a relationship with the vendors that are there, shopping there so that you can buy local, buying local is a big, big deal. I bought eggs today. Our farmers market's shut down. I bought eggs today. I bought them from my friend who I know has 20 laying chickens, and they, it's like, dude, I love that. I have another friend when they have surplus, they're really invested in helping me be healthier. So they know that high protein diet is a thing that they need. When they have surplus, they call me and they're like, hey, Kirk, come by and get some eggs. It's really, really, really wonderful that they do that stuff for me. And so, and we try to give back as often as we can. You know, we got a couple extra rabbits or something, you know, we'll go throw them in their freezer, you know, and those relationships are going to keep you alive when things go poop sandwiches.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Got
because
it. Side note, we're live in the bunker now.
Oh, okay. We are live in the bunker right now. So how do we go unlive everywhere else and be live in the bunker? Let's talk about that.
You can. You do nothing different right now.
Oh, okay. I do nothing different.
Yep.
Okay. So, but do I need to end the streams for Facebook and YouTube?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you don't have a multi-pass, then...
Oh, that's true.
Sorry.
So if you are interested in the multi-pass, that is through Patreon, and the bottom tier and is $2.99.
It's the only tier we have right now.
It's the only two.
Yeah.
Bottom and top. That's all you got.
It's $2.95.
And I will say, and I want to say this before we X out of all of this. I want to say this. One of our original Patreon members that joined last week, top 3, he asked for prayer this week, and Patreon prayer is a real thing. So we're going to make this public because he asked for as much prayer as possible. My friend Bobby is in the COVID unit in outside of Las Vegas, and he has pneumonia. And then also today he told me that he's got some of the really bad pre-existing conditions or comorbidities, I think they call them, that I'm not going to get into. But he has also developed a sore on his foot that has gone to the bone. So he is fighting for his life right now. And I'm not saying that he's getting special privilege. We're going to pray for him because of that, because he's giving us $3 a month. No, honestly, you can just tell us
It's just a way to filter through.
Yeah,
know that you're getting to us.
Right.
But if you were to put that on our page, or
we would still pray for you. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I'll just say this: Jesus, thank you so much for Bobby. Thank you for his generosity helping us, but ultimately, thank you for his friendship. Jesus, would you please put your healing hand on him? You made us. You know how to fix us. Please, 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 would you touch my friend? Would you strengthen his body? Would you give the doctors wisdom? Would you give the nurses kind, healing touch, and allow him to climb out of this hole?
Be with his mom.
Be with his mom, very stressed out. Be with the rest of his family, who is very, very upset. Jesus, thank you for Bobby. Thank you for the healing that you that he's asking for, that you're capable of. We now wait on you to see what your will is. May your will be done. Our prayer is that your will is to heal him. We love you, Jesus. Amen. All right, so
it's a community. And you don't have to pay to be a part of the community.
No.
It's just a different place.
That's exactly right. So if you're interested, we're going to do the after show. We're going to talk about things we can't talk about on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to do those.
Show and tell.
Still show and tell. We're going to do those things in the bunker. So we're going to pause this broadcast. We'll hit finish, and then you can join us. You posted that link in the comment section. So
it's there, and we'll upload the recording also. So if you join later, all the segment 3 bunker episodes will be in Patreon.
And I'll say this too. There's another video that I posted last week that didn't work at first. Now it does work.
I saw that you got that up. I put one up yesterday.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I need to check that video out. So, so please check that out. That talks about what kind of gear do you need to travel on a multi-state trip in the craziness of 2021. And I'm not going to talk about exactly what pieces of kit and what pieces of toolage that I took with me, because that is frowned upon by the interwebs. All right, so we'll probably have a 2 or 3 minute break between now and the bunker. But come check us out and join us in Patreon. That's the bunker. Click the link. Follow us over there. We'll be there in just a couple of minutes. All right, we love you.
Yep.